The heck?
I can't reverse with my current setup, but I can reverse in editing. Here's what he said.
If you lick my toes.
So, Netflix's The Twits is here, or at least it will be in 10 days now, with them dropping a new trailer for the Halloween season. Now, I'm gonna be honest, I have not read a Roald Dahl book in a good long time, but I have at least brushed up on a synopsis to remind me a little bit of the details. I mostly only really remember the upside-down house plot point. But from what I see of most of this trailer, it looks, for the most part, pretty good. Very much having this nice, seedy aesthetic art style that leans into a little bit of the gross and grotesque lifestyle of the Twits. I think this could be an interesting one to watch, although I don't know if it'll actually be too mainstream. This isn't exactly going to be K-pop Demon Hunters level of success, although there might be a hint of a musical number in there.
We are not like everyone, we're one of a kind.
Oh, it's a musical. Or they're singing at least in one scene. I don't remember if that was a thing that we knew in the announcement. And the fact that Mr. Twit is able to hit quite some high notes, I'm not fully on board with that yet. I'm gonna be honest. That's like, I didn't expect him to be up like a tenor or something. Surely you'd think an ugly man would be very bassy, you know? Maybe it's because my only real point of reference at the top of my head for a duo of evil intentions is like Les Mis and like owner of the house and all this. But I don't know, I just thought it'd be a little bit more grungy. Whilst I guess the whole thing's pretty high saturation, so maybe I shouldn't be surprised. We'll see. And apparently it is actually described as a musical comedy film, so we'll have to see where it goes. You've already heard my opinions on the vocal range, but we only actually get to hear a semblance of one of the songs, so we'll just have to see how the others come together. I would be surprised if it hits anywhere close to K-pop Demon Hunters, though. Now, with it being a kind of villainous story, there's a few kind of categories this kind of movie can fall into, both in the good and the bad. We've seen bad examples being done in the form of, like, the Addams Family, whilst also, in general, a lot of us love a good villain story, and I'm a little on the fence on exactly where this one leans as a gut reaction, but I at the very least have nice and high hopes. Now, the original book obviously isn't too extensive when it comes to lore, and there isn't necessarily a main protagonist orphan child going to take them down or anything like this movie is doing, but I think it makes sense for the movie to adapt in this way for its extended runtime.
The Twits declared war on some local orphan children.
Oh, because of course they did. I love the specifics for punching as down as possible for these two characters. Charmingly evil, which is kind of impressive to do, to be honest.
I don't think we'll be doing that.
Normal story.
Good. I really hope it leans into the slapstick and absurd, because the Twits always was this, you know, really off-kilter, non-standard, certainly not a Disney movie of a plotline. So I hope they do a good balance of really showcasing them to be the stars of their own movie. The kid stuff, you know, it's fine. The magic, the creatures, okay. But I just want to see quirky antics, you know? With a little underlayer of emotion in there too. Is that too much to ask? And from some excerpts, it is what I'm seeing here, which is very good. Instead, in the books, there is at least a collection of boys who accidentally get into a little bit of, they climb a tree and scare off some birds that they're after. But there are some interesting other adaptations going on that maybe makes the film a little bit more palatable, but not necessarily in the classic controversial political ways we've heard of in the past. No, the thing they're really only changing is the relationship with animals that the Twits have. As though we do have from the books in universe that the animals can each speak, and they all speak human languages, but not all the same ones, and there's a communication error there. But also, in this film at least, there are still muggle-wumps, which is a thing from the books that I apparently didn't remember.
Your no-good children stole our muggle-bumps.
I don't remember the muggle-bumps, I'm gonna be honest. I think I was in like year 2 when I read about this, and it wasn't specifically about muggle-bumps. But sure, I guess I can get on board with that. Something for the kids to latch on to. Cutesy, saturated characters as they are.
Diorama.
What?
Kids' first exposure to an election, huh? Well, I mean, I guess if there's ever an outlet to teach them something. But that's also probably because, in the books, muggle-wumps are pretty literally monkeys. With the Twits being old circus trainers, that's kind of their whole shebang. The muggle-wumps now are a kind of magical, glowy-y creature, probably to sell some cutesy merchandise. But also maybe makes it more palatable, maybe in that way. Whether exactly it's a thing for the monkeys of the books to create more miniature monkeys out of their mouths, I don't think I remember that at all being the case. I think the movie in that regard is going a little bit off to the side, but I have hopes that it makes it a more cohesive and enjoyable narrative. Having the orphans having to actually rise up against the Twits, a good plot beat. I'm not crazy on it personally, though. And that's the most modern twang we've seen of this trailer so far, and I'm not on board. Why do I feel like this is just some marketing ploy to get an even cuter character out to make stuff out of with them?
And lowbrow comedy.
Let me show you my diarrhea.
Funnily enough, this is probably the only lowbrow humor I will get into and like, because it's so on theme to the characters that it's written for. Also, is that Jim from The Office? Why does he look like that? It's Wayne John, not to be confused with John Wayne, of course, and also politics. Actually doing full, well, maybe it's just like club president for something or other. I mean, hey, if they do just boil down politics to, hey, here's a normal person, here's a smear campaign, and here's a smear campaign, that could be pretty funny in its own right. And ironic if it comes from, of all places, Netflix's The Twits. What I'm really here to see is just some nice, grotesque kind of humor and weirdly wholesome, relationships between the Twits, as they have a very unique dynamic that they're clearly both very mutual on. There looks to be certain elements of genuine, wholesome connection against all of the usual pranking stuff, which is also fun to see. And I want to see just a nice little blend and blur of all of it. Also, I was just looking at, like, the cast for this movie, and it's maddening, the names of these characters. You've got Gorb Clurb, you've got D Dumdy Dungle, Horvis Dungle, Beverly Onion, which is fine, Sweet Toad. But then even normal things like the mayor, you have Mayor Wayne John, which is just literature. Still, D Dumdy Dungle, maddening. Oh, and Bubsy, can't forget Bubsy.
Fire!
It's weird, it kind of sometimes feels like the Terrible Addams Family movies, like the aesthetic with like the hodgepodge junk slapped together to do evil-ish things, whilst the rest of the art style is very specifically something else that I don't know if I can compare it to anything, but I'm getting a little bit of an Addams Family vibe, at least aesthetically, with a lot more color and a lot less flatness. There's a weird vibe to, I guess, the villainous characters. Hey there, thank you for making it to the halfway mark of this video. Come subscribe if you haven't already for more animated movie news and trailer reactions. Otherwise, let's get back to it.
You take all the good out of life.
There's such an interesting tale that I wonder where they're going to tell with this, of like the wholesome relationship between the Twits. And I would assume they would, and that is kind of the point. With it very much being like, they are different, but are also, good in their own way. They're fine. You don't need to change them necessarily. But with so much of a focus of this kid talking to other species that now can speak to them, I hope it does, like, a good, decent job in a way that's not, like, just replastering a classic to be very much not what it was meant to be the first time. Now, I think this movie does a brilliant blend of good, interesting, stylistic animation, whilst also a kind of gross-looking aesthetic that works very nicely for the world that they're doing. And the main guy up front and center is one Phil Johnston, known as the writer and director of Ralph Breaks the Internet, which, isn't particularly great, if you ask me. But he's also the writer of Wreck-It Ralph 1 and Zootropolis. So I don't know why they had to go with Ralph Breaks the Internet. I think the trailer's trying to do him dirty for some reason, because the rest of this looks pretty fine. There are some directorial choices in this movie. I love the wide-angle lens of Mrs. Twit.
Especially each other.
And that's good. Oh, jeez. Okay, I paused at the wrong time there. I'm just looking at this, which is just cinema, really. But actually, so like, I have not gotten into the Roald Dahl books since I was a kid myself. I don't remember a lot of the specifics, but I feel like I could get into this movie. Like, the idea of these old grumpy people pulling pranks on each other, it seems really nice in a wholesome kind of fun way that I don't think you really see much in storytelling these days or in the old. So far, I can get on board. I want to see how they traverse certain things, but so far, I can get into this. Everyone loves a good divorce story, just without the divorce, apparently.
Is it special new kind of spaghetti?
Oh, lovely. It's not very often you see a movie based on ugliness. I don't know, I don't think it's a terrible prompt to necessarily jump off of. It's, to actually see it in 3D animated form, this could go in a handful of directions. And at least in regards to spaghetti but with worms in it, it's nice to see them not pulling a punch. We'll see how long that opinion necessarily sticks around. But I'm ready to just, like, you know, sink my teeth into just a little bit of grossness for this. Beyond all of that, though, I think what I'm seeing so far is a nice adaptation that teeters the line on not being too bad with its changes and generally making pretty decent and good ones. There does seem to at least be a little bit of an element around politics, probably not doing that deep of a commentary, but still fun in its own little way, I guess. And though it's obviously not going to be leaning too much on, like, the fact that Mr. Twit is a little bit fat, it's nice to see that they also haven't fully pulled their punches on making characters let themselves be ugly, you know? With that being an intrinsic part of their character, whilst also not being too much of actually punching down on people reflected in the real world. I think while my initial gut reaction was for all the kiddie magical stuff to be a little bit not quite my thing.
That's something that happens when I get a little anxious.
Oh boy. Oh boy. See, I was really wondering where this was going to go on the adaptation front, since I know the Roald Dahl books of the Twits has been a faintly controversial take at one point, namely for it being touted as particularly too harsh on their protagonist, calling them fat and ugly in a way that is more punching down to some people in the real world. And that's obviously a shame to see, like a book being burnt or censored or pulled away because it doesn't match with the modern times in a way that's not really arguably productive. So I was curious to see if they were going to do that, because obviously I don't want to see just like, hey, point and laugh, they're obese or something either. So I was interested to see how they were going to teeter that line. But instead, if it's just harmless but annoying, I have anxiety, he is a cute character, I guess that's not the worst case scenario, but it's also, you know, not as good as the original. Like, what do you think Roald Dahl would think about that? I don't think he'd think very highly. Compared to what actually is in the books a little bit, I think it's a good direction to take, and there's certainly plenty of footage to go around of the Twits themselves doing their funky little antics. In all regards, it seems to be playing the best of both worlds, and I'm only just curious to see how well a movie would do like this, because it is a little bit ugly, and as I've been saying throughout, it ain't quite gonna probably have the success of a musical like K-pop Demon Hunters. But I guess we'll just have to see a little bit more than a week's time from now. I'll certainly wrap round with a review at some point. And at the very least, it's nice to hear that with a movie so ugly, they still managed to put in so much color and vibes, if the trailer's soundtrack choices at least is anything to be believed.
What kind of story is this?
That's exactly what I'm asking, to be honest. This is kind of going a little off the walls. I only really remember the fact that they were twits. They had some unappealing characteristics, but they worked in a weird backwards kind of way, and we were to learn to not be like them because they have negatives, and these are the negative results of their negatives. I don't remember a kid coming in and beating them up, but I could see that being the case. Really don't remember the bioluminescent teddy bears universe that they're incorporating and giving us multiple species of, at least 3. When it's doing like goop on the streets and specifically throwing furniture at orphans, you know, I can get behind that a little bit. I'm not so great on the magical element. And to be honest, I feel like I'm just going to be more on the side of the grumpy adults. I wonder why. For now, though, I'd best end it off there. My name's been Daz. Thank you very much for reaching the end of this trailer reaction. Do tell me your thoughts on Netflix's The Twits. I have not heard a lot of, you know, hubbub about this movie beforehand, but I'd love to hear everybody's thoughts. And in the meantime, I best get round to reading the books again or something to really get research for this movie. We'll see. At the very least, it does sound like the ending is to be the same. There is a shot that insinuates it anyway. I'm rambling too much at the end. I shall see you all in a little bit. Cheerio!